Hello, hello. I'm Bob Duffy, and welcome to Between Two Bites. As always, I'm joined by the magnificently magnanimous Captain Geek himself, Eric Manchin, where we explore the backstories and insights of game devs, creators, and master coders. In this episode, we're looking at game engines, Unreal, Unity, and we have two developers who have experience with these game engines. We have John McGlaughlan from Soma Games on the Unity side, and we have Pedro Kayatt from VR Monkey on the Unreal Engine side. So hopefully it'll be insightful, and I hope to learn a little bit more about these game engines myself. So let's spin the logo and welcome our guests. All right. Pedro, wave hi so we know who's Pedro.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, and hey, John, welcome.
Hey, Bob.
Very good, very good. So thank you guys for joining the show. And so last time we did this, I goofed. I didn't have Mike and Lee give a little bit of background on what they do. So we went through this whole thing talking about coding in the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that, and we missed everything. So too much stuff on cassette tape drives and not enough on their backstory. So I want to fix that. So Pedro, we'll start with you. Can you give people an idea of what you guys do at VR Monkey and if there's anything interesting that you guys are working on?
Yeah, VR Monkey, as the name suggests, we are a VR studio. We have been working with virtual reality since 2014. We do several things in VR because VR is a whole new world. The main thing, of course, it's gaming. We love to do gaming, but we also do some safety trainings for industry and also some B2B deals with other companies.
Very, very cool. And John, what are you guys doing at Soma Games?
So we are a Unity developer shop making games on Steam, Xbox, and PS4. Our current major title is Redwall, the Scout, The Lost Legends of Redwall, and we're happy about that.
Yeah, Redwall, cool. That's some major IP, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah,
having
it
Lord of
is.
the Rings, right? It's very, very cool. Is that exclusive to you guys, or do you share it with somebody else? Or
Yeah, so we had a contract with Random House to make several games, and so we have 3 acts for The Lost Legends of Redwall, the Scout, and then we have several smaller mobile apps that we're doing. One of them is kind of like a choose your own adventure game, but text with animated characters. And we have what we call our cooking game is the quick name. And so because Redwall is all about food, and so we know we had to make one of those. And so those are on iPhone and Android, and they're coming out soon.
oh, very, 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 very cool. I mean, I think we could probably do a whole show about IP in games, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you secure it? How do you manage that and all that kind of stuff? So it's fantastic that you guys have had that run with Redwall. We're going to want to get into talking about these game engines, but we want to make sure that we're doing it right. So Eric, you want to give a little disclaimer on all of this?
Yeah, so just to be clear, obviously Bob and I are proud Intel employees, but this discussion is just about discussing the pros and cons about the different game engines, and in no way should this be construed as Intel Corporation is officially sanctioning or endorsing any particular game engines. Quite frankly, we've been working with both game engines for a number of years. We've done lots of collaborative work with them. We think they're both great. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue this as, oh my God, Intel is picking one over the other. No, it's just an open discussion with two of the brightest folks that we know in our Intel Software Innovator Program to help the younger, or let's say the newer developers try to figure out which engines might suit them better. So
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, the landscape of game engines is much broader than these as well. And we might get a little bit into that. And there's such a huge ecosystem that's even supporting these engines, and we could talk a little bit about that too. But we want to know your guys' experience, right? Because you've been doing this for quite a long time. So let's get into it first. So Pedro, let's go back to you. I think you guys have been doing Unreal Engine for a while. Is that something that you started out doing, or did you kind of find your way there?
Not really. In fact, it's very funny the story because I started working before we had like Unity and Unreal Engine like available for the public. So the first time I was working in games, we made a engine with Java OpenGL, and I don't expect no one to try to do that again. It's not a
Right.
very nice experience. After that, I worked a lot, and I ended up starting to do mobile gaming in some even big companies, and then we started using Unity. Unity was okay for that reason. At the time, it was missing a lot of the 2D stuff that you could do. So mobile had a very good compatibility, but not very great 2D at the time. And when we started doing VR, we wanted to have like a very strong engine to provide us the possibility to create Dinos do Brasil. So the Dinos do Brasil is a project that we recreated like many dinosaurs from Brazil back on the days, and we wanted to be really realistic at the time. So we went to CryEngine,
Oh,
but
really?
it was meant to be a VR game, so like a VR experience. But then CryEngine wasn't sure if they would support VR or not. They were like not really clear about that subject. It was the time when they start to do like, so you understand, Star Citizen
Yep.
was just showing the first prototype in VR. So we said, oh, maybe they're gonna have VR. Quite a long time ago. At the time, Unreal has started to be able to use it with the subscription plan. So we said, well, let's give a chance. Yeah, like, Unity, to create realistic graphics in Unity was like really hard to do it at the time. So we said, let's try Unreal, and we were impressed with the quality that we could achieve with not too much work. So we choose Unreal for that project, and then other projects start to come to the company, and we start to use Unreal for it then as well. We are pretty glad. That was back in 2014.
Yep.
So
Okay.
7 years already using Unreal Engine for our own IPs.
Yeah, I was thinking it was right about then because you had mentioned, what work CryEngine was doing and who was starting to do VR, and so that's I was thinking 2014, 2015, but yeah, okay, very cool. So
Exactly.
you found you guys kind of found your way there basically because you needed a good VR game engine, right? And you found your path there. Okay, cool. So John, what about Soma Games? Did you guys have that kind of same discovery, kind of bounced around until you landed on Unity, or how did it work for you guys?
I mean, a little bit. Like way back in, I think it was '06, we started doing mobile development, and so we
Mhm.
actually our first game was in straight OpenGL ES in Objective C, which is a great system to have three programming languages together all at the same time. Um, but we got that going. It was really good. But then we tried to move to a game engine called Torque. I don't know if any of you know that one, and it was horrible. And it was
Terrible.
really hard to get anything to work. Yeah, terrible. And so from that, we found Unity, and from then we've been sticking with Unity for a long time. We took our initial game G and made G Prime, which was like a 2D, 3D
Yeah. Gee.
space gravity game.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so, and then moved on from there. And we do most of our development now in Unity. Sometimes we do straight HTML5. So.
Very, very cool. Yeah, G was an interesting kind of physics gravity game. It's kind of interesting, but you guys also had a story along with that as well. And I think that's one thing that it sticks out with Soma Games. You guys kind of, always have this backstory. It's not just about the gameplay. It's about kind of building that, the
Yeah.
lore about the game, which is really cool. Um, yeah. So okay. So it's interesting. It sounds like both of you guys started on the mobile side, and then ended up on the PC side of things. Or you actually, Pedro, you guys are doing Oculus as well. So which is really cool.
Yeah,
So I,
that's a very funny story, Bob, because right after Dinos do Brasil, our next
mhm.
project was like for Gear VR, like a mobile VR game with high constraints on performance. Uh, that was a really different scenario. And we had like PC with a lot of resources, so we could build some realistic things. And then we went to like mobile in VR that we needed to go like under 50 draw calls per frame. And almost nobody would be crazy enough to do that at that time in Unreal because, yeah, it was hard.
Yeah,
Well, Bob, But Bob, I think that the takeaway here, right,
Yeah.
is that this is one of the key appealing aspects of selecting a game engine.
Mm-hmm.
Is that if you think about it, right, with very little adjustment, if you want to do just a pure PC game, you're going to put in X number of hours. But for just a little bit more, like Pedro was saying, having to optimize a little bit or whatever, you can then extend your game to multiple platforms, be it console or mobile or whatnot. And I think that's probably, to me, a great observation on why game engines have become so popular, is that you effectively put in nearly just slightly more of the time into it, but now you greatly expand your TAM and therefore your revenue opportunity, and it's all about ROI. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why we've seen such a rise over what I would say the last 20 years in game engines, right? It wasn't a big thing. It kind of worked or whatever 20 years ago. What was the one you said, Torque, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's really when game engines said, hey, look, I don't want to say code once and run everywhere, right? Like Java says, but something similar to that of make the one game and we're going to try and make it easy for you to publish to multiple platforms. And that is very appealing.
Yeah, there's definitely, we talked about this a little with Mike and Lee. There's the whole money side of game development, right? And sometimes, picking those tools, really it's not all just about, what it can do. It's really distribution, how are you going to get into the market? What ecosystem is supporting it? What platforms do they support? You may find that you've got this great idea for a game, but really the market may be in a particular device. It could be on console, it could be on PC, it could be on mobile, and all of those things might go into that choice of game engine that you're going to use. So I'm wondering, because you guys, I think, have been pretty settled in on the game engines that you use now. So you've built up all of this skill, in which I would imagine it would be harder to shift. If suddenly somebody said, "Oh, wait, let's go do this," but do you guys still look at that? Are there discussions in your teams? Is like, you know what? Maybe we should be looking at this engine. I think we mentioned Godot when we were off in the session before. It's like, is there any sense that you guys are thinking, well, we should be looking at something else, or making sure that we're up to speed on these things? So John, Soma, do you guys do that? Have discussions about other game engines, or is it just like, nope, we got the skill here, we're done with it?
Keep hammering.
So I wouldn't say we have long discussions, but we do talk about, do we want to switch? What makes sense? I know with Unreal, when it first came out a while ago, we were like, do we want to make the switch right now? And the fact that the whole team was very Unity efficient, it made it hard to want to switch to something new. And then actually just over the weekend, I downloaded Unreal to see like how far can I get in a weekend. And it turns out like it is not a easy engine to know. It takes a while to learn. And so the time for the whole team to learn makes it so it's hard to want to switch once you've got that full learning experience done. And so we won't be switching soon until we really have to.
Until you have a good reason. Yeah.
John, to dive in a little bit, what would be, and this is completely opening the question, what would be a killer, for lack of a better phrase, feature that if Unreal did X, you at a hardcore Unity shop would be like, oh, we need to rethink? What would be a golden egg there that would be just so shiny and new? You'd be like, oh my God. We kind of go like for example, obviously we know Epic has their store tied to the, there's a tie-in there and all that. Would it be something financial? Would it be something like the ray tracing that everyone keeps yapping about? What would make a hardcore Unity shop go, ooh? Like what's that meme of the guy looking back behind him, right? What would be that for you guys at the Unity shop for Unreal? What would make you turn your head?
It would be the money. Like money always talks. Like if Unreal wanted to buy the shop and said, you're doing this now, then that's what we would do. Or if a company comes in and goes, hey, we want to give you money, and but you have to use the Unreal Engine, then we're like, fine.
Yes,
you
because
know, I,
sometimes it happens that way, right? Is there, and we talked about the IP thing before, right? Is that's, sometimes somebody says, "Hey, we like what you guys are doing. We need your help to build a game, but it needs to be on this," right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
I was going to say exactly that because that's what happened here in VR Monkey. Like we have a lot of external development that we do in Unity. So I would say like at least more than half of the development team is proficient in Unity, not Unreal here in VR Monkey. But our own IPs we build with Unreal. So it's pretty crazy because sometimes we have like some, console wars here, engine wars. No, Unity is better, Unreal is better. So it's
tastes
very
great, less filling.
you
yeah,
know it doesn't make sense because some people try to say no both of them are great just stop fighting no this is and I think one of the
right.
things that it's exactly as he said like if you got used to one to change is really hard
Yep.
because what I get from my experience is that Unreal drives the whole package. It has everything there already. So, oh, you need a visual programming tool. You have blueprints. Oh, you need I don't know, animation blend tool. You have it. You want to do static lighting. Okay, it works pretty well. Like Unity doesn't have as a package, but you can go to the marketplace and
Yep.
get package like, okay, I can have bakery here, so I can have better static lighting. I can get these other two, but it takes time for people to understand. Okay, which are the good packages that I need to go to the marketplace of Unity to make Unity a robust engine.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I think that's the main difference between both of them.
Yeah, and that's the main thing from experience is knowing all the packages you want to include. If you're going to do Bolt or we have a Mega Flow, which is our Mega Shapes, which we use for prototyping. It's an in-engine mesh deformation tool that you can do in either real time when it's running or in the editor, and it makes it so we can easily prototype levels. And each one of those packages makes your whole system more robust. And for me, that's the biggest difference between Unreal and Unity is the asset store and the ability for one, a whole bunch of things you can add. You can download your castle package. And so the whole castle medieval world is there for you. You can get that from Unity for usually like $20. And they have a really good community of a whole bunch of people
Yep.
because it was the first free engine. And so
Yeah.
there's millions of Unity developers that are willing to help you. And Unreal just doesn't have that set gigantic community group yet, just because it adoption rate has been slower because Unity existed.
Yeah, I think
And
that's a key difference, right? It almost kind of from their DNA, like John, like you said, it's where they started. They were the first, free game engine that could get you towards AAA quality, right? And so I think that suddenly just, students, a lot of, developers interested in game development could just get it and use it. And they just built this massive community where people could just add stuff, create their own tools that would work with Unity. And it just became this massive ecosystem. And that was the distinction, I think, where when you went to Unreal, it's like everything was out of the box. You had an Unreal game and it just looked beautiful. All the shaders were just awesome. You could just throw up trees and grass, and it's just like, wow, this stuff with the lighting is just beautiful. But you go to Unity and you're like, oh wait, in order to do that, it doesn't look as good. But if I download this package here, if I go to the Unity store and add this here, and I follow this thing there, you could get there. Um, so it seems like that DNA is still there. There's still the massive community over on the Unity side, and Epic and Unreal still building a lot of features in there. But these things are coming closer and closer together these days. I mean, it seems like I don't know that I could tell an Unreal game from a Unity game like I used to be able to. What do you guys think?
And we should be clear right now, right? As they've said, that Unity was the first big engine that had a free option, and that really brought in the community. But right now, at least as last I heard, there is a free option for Unreal as well.
Oh
So
yes,
both
yeah, yeah.
Unreal and Unity have free options now. They've definitely moved closer towards each other in terms of their go-to-market strategy and whatnot. So for the
well,
audience at home, we want to be clear: both Unity and Unreal have free options that you can start with.
Similar licensing models.
With just a small difference, Unreal it's
please.
open source.
Yeah. You what?
That's Unreal, it's open source, and that makes all the difference in my particular case.
Huh.
Because I can just download the code of Unreal, and if there is a bug on Unreal, I can change it and fix it. I don't need to wait for an update from the engine. Like in Unity, if you have a problem with the engine, you can sit there and wait then to fix or try to find a workaround. So that has saved me quite some times.
Yeah.
Good note.
Sorry, John, you were about to talk
ahead,
about
John.
something like making the difference between like Unreal and Unity games. Now it's much harder.
You know, I think with Unity 2018 is when they did the new pipeline, scriptable pipeline. I think that was the big difference from when they added that to make it so that Unity could look like Unreal. And, you know, yes, it takes more time. Like, it does take someone with knowledge of how it all works. Like, we don't have our pipeline programmer right now at Soma, which is probably one missing factor, but that was a huge change for Unity to allow the scriptable pipeline, and something that when we have time, which no one in programming ever has time, because but that'll be something that we want to look at really hard for our next games.
Yeah.
Hey, John, can I follow up on that for a second?
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about Unity, great community, lots of supplementary things, in marketplace stuff you can get to. I feel like whenever you have that situation, it's a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, I've got 10,000 options. On the other hand, I have to trudge through 10,000 options. For the audience at home, are there any websites or resources or anything that's, like, for lack of a better phrase, the consumer reviews of Unity packages? Like, when you guys need to do a new thing, you want a new package, is there a place that you go and you say, hey, let's go to this site and see who makes the best, and I'm making this up here, right? Tree packages or whatever, right?
No.
How do you sort through the
Stack
plethora,
Overflow.
right? How do you? Well,
No, I mean,
maybe it is, right? But
when Asset Store went actually on the web, that was a huge bonus because it was a lot easier to go through than through Unity. So for a long time, the Asset Store was only in Unity, and sorting through was terrible. Now you can actually go on the web, and I think it's assetstore.unity.com, maybe. Unity
people will Google it,
something like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They'll Google it. The community is really harsh in the way it reviews if an asset is inappropriate. And so the easiest way actually is like, I just want all assets that are 5 stars, sort by price, and you know, the stuff that is close to free or free is always first. There are some more expensive things that you want to look at, but the search feature in the Asset Store is actually really good. And so it's easy to find the things because Unity makes sure that the assets are correct. And so you actually have to show that it works before it can go to the Asset Store. And so, I mean, there's sometimes because Unity revs a lot, which is one big difference between Unreal and Unity is the rev times. And so that can cause issues. But you know, the Asset Store in general is easy to use, and that's why I don't think there's been a bajillion review sites on these are the assets you need for iPhone, this is the assets you need for Android, these are the assets you need for Steam, etc. And so, and because Google or Bing are really good, it's Unity and then whatever you need.
Right, but you know, I joked about Stack Overflow, but that's kind of what happens is if you're looking for a particular feature or capabilities, often that's where you find community answering questions and you know, screenshots of this and that, and then you can experiment here and there. And so it's just for every developer, almost on everything. That's kind of where you find a lot of stuff.
But you know, this marketplace is not something that's exclusively the Asset Store in Unity. We have the marketplace on Epic as well. The main difference is that there are much less content on the Epic Store marketplace, but usually the quality of the things that we have on the marketplace on the Epic Store, it's higher.
Right.
Like compared to the Unity. Like Unity, we have plenty of things, but as like you guys said, sometimes you just download something and it doesn't work. Like Epic make sure that they test a lot then, and they will not be published on the marketplace if they are not working in that particular engine. And you have like all the characteristics pretty clear, and they need to have videos of how to do it and documentation of how to use it. It's one of the advantages of being not too big. You can focus on quality. So far, I never experienced any bad kind of plugin direct on the marketplace. But at the meantime, there's this crazy thing that we do have like a lot of plugins for Unreal that are not on the marketplace. They mainly in GitHub. Like you can find the best VR plugins are on GitHub.
Hmm.
Like there is a Notion plugin for Unreal that's amazing, and it's open source. You go in GitHub and download it, and works in almost all the versions of the engine. But nobody knows about it because it's not on marketplace. You need
Right.
to understand the community. You need to be on the forums and look into like the Epic community as well.
Yeah.
So it's something that I feel particularly similar to how the asset store works in Unity. You need to be part of the community to understand what are the hidden gems that we can find.
Yeah, and it's not just stuff coming from the community; it's also coming from the broader software ecosystem. Whether it's, Adobe with Substance, and the integrations there, or I know that I can do things with Blender and bring that easier into one thing or the other. You can bring an entire scene and stuff like that. So there's also Mixamo from Adobe as well, which does the animation stuff. So being able to get characters created and move them from one software suite into these things is just getting a lot easier. So speaking of that, in some of the games that you guys are creating, are there certain tools or components or add-ons and plugins that you guys rely on? So John, I know with Redwall, you guys have been playing with this scent mechanics, which is really cool. So for folks who don't know, is Redwall is it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings with animals, right? So you've got
Adorable animals.
adorable animals, mice and rabbits and badgers and all that kind of stuff. And there are these different characters. So these characters live within this world in the forest and they go on adventures. And as we know, animals see the world or experience the world often through scent, and this is something that I know that Soma Games you guys have played with. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of feature and how does that work with something like a Unity? I mean, because we said you're often pulling in other components.
Yeah, so when we first started doing that system, we had used Megaflow because the particle system in Unity was poor. It would just didn't give what we wanted to do, and so the scent is actually a particle flow, laminar flow system to show where the scents are going downwind, and so that was a good system to use, but it was processor intensive, which caused us to have to make a lot of sacrifices other places. And so actually with the new Unity, I think 2017, they came out with particle force fields. And so actually now we're doing all of the scent system directly in Unity because they revamped the whole particle system to make it easier to do. It made it so we could make the scent was what I call fluffier. Because it gives it so you can do gravity and rotation as it's going through, which caused the scent to more diversify its movement as it's going through. And we use that for puzzles and for identifying negative creatures. So you can go through. We have what we call an active scent mode, which makes it so you can sense things better, but you can't move. And then each creature, depending on which one you choose, the scent system is different. And so mice on normal can't really see very much when they're smelling until they go into active scent, but moles, they can't see very well, but they're always basically in active scent mode.
Oh.
And so that's how we've made it so that the gameplay is different as you're going through, and each creature has its own individual characteristics and personalities.
I will say I had to test the Redwall game for one of our Intel programs, and the scent mechanic that you guys came up with I thought it was absolutely brilliant because obviously I'm not an animal, I'm not a rabbit or a mole or anything, and so I have no idea how like Bob said, the animals experience the world differently through the sense of smell. But I think you guys did an amazing visualization to what I would feel would be a great representation of what they probably are doing. I thought it was absolutely amazing. So congrats to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, highly intuitive, a way we can contextualize the ability to engage with scent. I mean, so very, very, very cool. And Pedro, I know that you've kind of helped guide me on some Unreal stuff as I've kind of, because I started with Unity on my side, and I just dabble in Unreal every now and again. But you've talked about things. You kind of turned me on to Mixamo. You've also talked about your volumetric lighting and things like that in Unreal. Are there different features and capabilities that you're looking to on the Unreal side as well?
Well, I really want to try the last version of Unreal. Like Epic, it's kind of getting crazy. They are trying to dominate the world. They are putting money on Blender, then to make the cycle from Blender direct to Unreal faster and easier. They bought Quixel, like it's kind of Substance Painter, and it's free for using on it as well. And now in the last version, the 4.26 of Unreal, you can edit the geometries and modeling inside Unreal. There is even a sculpt tool inside Unreal. And they have like water simulation that runs pretty well. Like this is something that I had a lot of trouble making work properly before, like water simulation with like fluid simulation working well without like any other assets trying to put inside it. Now they release a public version of the Chaos engine that they are throwing away all the physics engine that they used to have for a new one. I had the opportunity on GDC to try this demo out where you control like a very big robot and just shoot on the building. All the pieces of the building, you can destroy it. So it was amazing. So I really want to try this new Chaos engine. Quite some time ago, they changed also the particle system to the Niagara system now. It's I don't know how the difference from the previous particle system on Unity was, but like in Unreal was from water to wine, totally different, much better system. Like not that the previous ones was bad, but not good as it is right now. And I just excited to see like things. I use it already the modeling editor because I don't want this model here, and I just took a piece about it. One thing that Unreal does pretty great is when they bought Singleton, Simple Palm. I think that was the name of it. It's just that you can reduce the number of polygons on a model.
Mm-hmm.
Side direct the engine, just like, okay, I want 20% of the polygons, process, and that's it. And it was so good. Like I wasn't expecting to have so many good results on that. And after Fortnite, of course, Fortnite was an event on Epic.
Yep.
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Probably. They made the game engines much robust to build like just one project for multi-platform. So Fortnite is the same project for running on PS4, PS5 to mobile. So you can specify, okay, if I'm deploying it on mobile, just increase the lot of this character +1. So from the start, as he has this way to pre-processing the lots inside Unreal, you just can say, okay, just drop the number of polygons by half and press the button, everything works, go home, and that's done.
Does it do the same with textures as well? So it'll change the level of detail, but then also your texture maps too?
Yes, you can just go to the engine and say, okay, this 4K texture doesn't need to be 4K, go to 1K and
that's brilliant.
put up. Yeah. That has helped us so much in the porting process. Like it was and the baking of the light that's out of like here in the company we have like a swarm because Unreal just in the last version they launched GPU light building. Until now, it was just CPU. So we built a swarm that they have by default, is in the documentation, that you can connect multiple machines. So they all together can simulate as the lighting bounces on your level. And the results are really, really good. And without using like dynamic lighting, makes the game much lighter. So this is also something that's very important. In our last game, we are also using some plugins like there is the VR extension plugin that's they also get the Epic Mega Grant. That's a grant that Epic goes is delivering money to a lot of developers.
$100 million. The
Yes.
Epic Mega Grant was $100 million that they were devoting. Obviously, little pieces here and there, but it was a very impressive effort on their part. Yeah.
And this guy got it, and he has like a plugin where you can, he just send a new update. Now you can use VR as in, you can have VR hands as in Alex, Half-Life Alex, where they have physics reactions. So you press the hand against a wall, and the hand sticks on the wall while your real hand goes through. It's pretty neat. And another one is the tunneling. Like I think it's called Tunneling Pro plugin. Just that. It has a lot of configurations, but basically it can turn down your field of view depending on the velocity that you go in VR. So it decreases a lot the cyber sickness that you feel on it. And it's just straightforward. It's just put the plugin, drop the component on the player, and that's it. It's working.
Amazing, amazing. It sounds like both of these engines are really keeping up the speed. Lots of different features, a way to improve the experience for the developers, make sure that these games are just awesome to play. Is there part of the development process, because there may be some people thinking about starting game development or in the process of game development, and it seems like this amazing world. You can be a rock star and create a game, but often you're giving somebody all these tools to do so much in there. And sometimes there's parts of the development process that people don't really think about. And I always think about Eskil Steenberg, who's an innovator in our program, and he's just a master at things like UV unwrapping. And it's just a part that everybody knows that if you're creating three-dimensional assets and they're going to go in a game, you got to apply a texture to them. You've got to do the UVs, and you've got to do it right. And if you don't do it right, it can be all sorts of problems. So that's an area that I have an appreciation for that I don't have skill in. So I want to ask you guys both in terms of game developers, is there a part of the game development process or pipeline that maybe is underappreciated? In what you guys see. So, John, any thoughts on the Soma Games side? Is there a part that you guys think, geez, people don't really realize we do all this work, but we do this cool stuff?
Man, something. You said it earlier. Like we are very big about story, and so we spend a lot of time focusing on making the story right and hiring the right voice actors to go over that story. And so we have, I think it was something like 10,000 lines of audio in Act 1, something like that. And it's just what we feel is important, that if you're making a game, especially because we make adventure games, that the story and the interacting with the story is important, and making sure that each character has its own personality that comes through, both through the voice acting, but also just the words they say. And so that's a huge portion of our games that I think a lot of people might miss when they first see it. Partly because our first tutorial was too long, which we're changing. But yeah. Tutorials, they're terrible.
But John, to jump in on that, right? I, for one, completely appreciate a great story, right? For me, I think that's one of the reasons why I always felt like StarCraft and StarCraft 2 was one of the epic games that I'll remember when I'm 80 and in the retirement home, is because, especially with even just the first StarCraft, there was a rich story. It was like you were reading a book or watching a movie that you then, just got to jump up on stage and play part of the movie, and then you jump back to your seat, you heard the next part, and then you jumped in, right? So it was to me, I think story is very great. But one thing maybe to Bob's question of what's underappreciated is when you have 10,000 lines, right? We all know the Muppets, we all enjoyed Kermit and whatnot. Is there a big effort for taking the voice actor, Susan, right, and her lines for her character and aligning it with the moving of the mouth? Is that a hard thing to make it seem like it's not some 60s kung fu poorly dubbed, I fight you now, type of thing? Is it that kind of collaboration or synchronization? Is that super difficult, or is it more like the Muppets and you just go wah 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 wah?
So, due to the difficulty of that, we made it so their mouth doesn't move. We make it so it's a visual experience.
The whole
No, because it's really hard. And even the plugins that do it, I don't know how well Unreal does it, but even the plugins in Unity, even the most advanced ones, like they're still not very good. And so the only way to really do that is animate every visual, verbal interaction by hand.
Yeah, that's a huge.
I got a pretty news for you, John. We use it on Unreal already. We just needed the blank spaces for the character, and we use an iPhone X to record the facial expressions of a narrator, and we put it on the engine, and it worked amazingly well. There is an article from the guys. I don't remember exactly, but if you look on GDC, like cheap facial tracking, you're gonna find some things very nice using like iPhone X, for instance. It was the best of all the tools that I tried to find. It was a mobile phone recording and exporting the data from the animation.
You'll have to send me that. Like I wonder how it will go to adding that to a mouse. That's actually a hard thing. Like we found ones that we worked really well with a person, like person to person, yes. But like the hardest one I think for us was the
yes, I know.
The rats, because their nose was so long that it made weird things happen.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even big studios have a problem with that. Like if you saw the Lion King, were the one that they tried to make it look realistic, right, and stuff like that. And it's just there's something different that you just can't translate human, expressions and stuff like that to animal. You have to do them a little bit differently. You have to make them more like the animal might be, right? And so, yeah, that is definitely challenging. But Pedro, you bring up a really interesting thing, which is the advancement of the technology with visual computing, OpenCV, you've got AI inferencing and models training. So I think we're all seeing this just on simple things like Instagram and other stuff like that, where people can put videos up and you don't need mocap, to do facial tracking, right? It used to be basic head tracking, then it was just a little bit of eyes and mouth, and now it's so many points of the face can actually be tracked using standard video, right? It's just amazing how the technologies have moved forward and are advancing these things. So that's another question that I want to ask you guys about AI, but let's just get back to this topic here about the underappreciated aspects of things. So John is saying storytelling and all the bits and pieces that go into storytelling, like all the audio. But Pedro, from your side of things, is there an area that's underappreciated where you guys make sure that you put a lot of effort in?
Oh yes, QA, CD, continuous development, and QA. Totally nails it. Like nobody care about QA. Everyone thinks, oh, it's just QA. Oh God, you guys have no idea. Like we are building up our processes. We have 4 QAs here now in the company, just to try the game and understand how to report a bug or how to give the tools so developers can fix the bug. Man, it's hard. It's not something easy to understand what's broken.
Right.
And many times I just jump in the meetings and start, guys, you are saying that this is the bug. This is not the bug.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the bug tools that exist, they're not made well for a game system, and they don't communicate what we need. And so we actually rolled our own. And so we actually have a whole bug tool that we made that we integrate with testers. Yeah, I totally agree with QA. And it's very hard to find good quality testers. Like
Yeah,
they're
most
like,
of
oh
the
yeah, we
people
can test a game. And we're like,
I volunteer.
see, there's a difference between volunteering and being a good tester, and we found that the hard way. You get a lot of people,
You're
I'll
not gonna make
totally
the
play
cut,
your
Eric.
game.
See, but I think you guys are looking at this wrong. You look at it like they're bugs, right? They're undiscovered Easter eggs. Like my favorite aspect of an old game on Atari was tanks, and I was so just mind blown when I figured out that I could put my tank in the corner in just a certain way, and if I turned, it would pop me out to the other side, and I'd be on the other side of the map. So, you're saying bugs. I'm saying opportunity. I'm just throwing it out there, right?
But that's one of the fix for our bugs. Like
Yeah.
we documented it. Like this is not a bug. This is a feature.
Yeah. Every software engineer has that tattooed somewhere in their body. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Very good. Well, yeah, QA is definitely. We could just spend a lot of time talking about this. Just, I mean, the storytelling piece, I think, is just could be a whole thing all on its own. And debugging QA, we could go
And continuous development. That's
deep into
something
that.
that's really
Yeah.
really not appreciated at all. Like how you provide builds for the QA to keep testing all the time. So you need to have a whole system. So developers don't need to, go spinning. Oh, what are you doing? They are like playing fighting swords. Oh, I'm beating the game.
Yep.
How much time do you waste just building the game, building
Compiling.
creating a package? Yeah, compiling.
Compiling.
Yeah, so Unity actually
Rendering.
made Unity Colab, which also has an automatic build tool that you can connect to your systems if you use that, and it just makes builds and spits them out to people. We actually also have a what we call the build machine, and it's has a cron job running that does builds daily when we set it up, and they go directly to Steam.
Oh, very
Jenkins,
cool.
What?
it is using Jenkins to do it.
Mm-mm. No,
We do.
we just do straight batch jobs through
Okay.
Windows. Yeah, so I have batch files. Yeah, batch files doing automatic SVN download with automatic builds for all the platforms we're doing, and then it uploads all at once to Steam. So that can run whenever we want and awesome. And so that's been really helpful. And then we've found, you have the what you call it, the cluster, but for us, our build machine, because we need it to be fast, it has a NVMe drive, and all it does is builds, but then it's mostly open, and so our art team can go in and do all the light mapping that they want to do, and it runs way faster on that machine. So
we are trying to implement continuous development both with Unreal. When Unreal is ready, we are now trying to make it in Unity using Jenkins. That's a service that a lot of people use, I think, open source. And you can control even by internet and make them post the buildings direct on Steam and also send notifications on Slack or Discord. It's a pretty nice tool as well.
So, Bob, one thing I think we're going to need to do with this podcast, as I'm listening to all the discussions, is I feel like we have uncovered a number of wonderful gems, right? Like Pedro was mentioning the face tracking and this and that, and packages and whatnot. So we probably should, in the description under the podcast, add a bunch of links that people will find useful for things to go look for further information. Because I know when I watch a podcast like this and people just blurt out the URL, I'm like, was that a W or a U? I can't, I'm Googling for 3 hours trying to find the one thing they mentioned. So we should add some links, buddy.
All right. So everybody check the links below. Hopefully they're there. All right. Very good. I want to ask you guys about some things that, that are coming up, that are hot button items for people. I think the game ecosystem is hot on ray tracing right now. But we've heard mixed things on ray tracing is people seem to love it, but sometimes game developers think it's a little bit too expensive to deploy, or maybe it's not quite there. So wondering about ray tracing, is it a thing for you guys? And if not, maybe is there something else that's a thing for you? We'll start with John.
So, obviously as a gamer, ray tracing is wonderful. I would also say that for developers, like, we are slow to adopt because the main one is we want our games to look beautiful, not beautiful for 3% of the population.
Uh-huh.
And so will ray tracing be a thing? Yes. Is it a thing right now? I would say no. Just because we don't have the adoption rate. And so, like, yes, the Series X and PS5 have ray tracing, but it doesn't quite have the same power as the newest systems, and might not be quite powerful enough to do ray tracing well unless you have a whole dev team just to make it so your draw calls are perfect. And in the indie world, we just don't have that. And so I think it will become very apparent, the studios that have 200 people making video games versus the rest of the world. I would say probably about 2 years from now, you'll start seeing that because ray tracing will become more important. But it's something that I know the indie world will be slow to acknowledge just because the systems aren't there yet. And it doesn't look right when you don't do it right. It looks really bad.
Yeah, definitely.
And John, to dive into two angles on that, right? One, to me, I've seen some websites that do this, right? They'll turn ray tracing on and off so you can see the difference, right? But to me, it feels like what I keep hearing people talking about is turning it on or off, like it's a binary thing. And I wonder, how do you feel that it might be a thing where a particular scene might use it for this aspect of it? Like, I don't know, you've got a prisoner in a glass case or something, right? And they're going to use it there, but for most of the game, it's not going on, or they just use it for an aspect of a scene. Do you think there's going to be some compromise where it's not like the whole world is ray tracing or the whole world isn't ray tracing, but rather it's going to be this area where it can really be useful is going to implement it? And then the second question for you, a follow-on to that, is I know most of the video games I've enjoyed over the years, there's very typically a cutscene, right? Where you're transitioning from chapter 3 to chapter 4 or whatever. And to me, I feel like that might be the opportunity for ray tracing in the near term, is the cutscene to make that look epic and beautiful. No pun intended there, right? Make it look stunning and beautiful. But it's a video, it's a cutscene, so it doesn't matter what machine they're running on. And do you think that's useful? So two questions there.
I, as a programmer, don't know if there are ways to cause ray tracing to be specific for a small part of one scene. So I wouldn't have a good comment on that. I would think, knowing how game engines are programmed and how they are all designed, it would be a whole rewrite of the source code to say, I want the ability to make ray tracing be only on this one specific object instead of the whole scene. That's why it's a binary on-off. And with cutscenes, like, it depends on how you're doing the cutscene. Is it in-game or is it out of game? Because if it's out of game, then it's not really matter how you do it. It'll be a rendered anyway.
Exactly.
And processed later. In which case, I would actually think ray tracing would be a negative because you'd want to have all the ray of lights be specified, not be dynamically done. And so it could it would look beautiful, but probably with great artists, you could make something more beautiful without it, because you want to have I want this one light to be this one pixel. Now generate in Blender or generate in Photoshop or generate in whatever system you're using to make your long form cutscenes.
Okay.
And so if it's in engine, it would be awesome to turn it on, like overforce a person, but that would also be telling your player that you know better than they do, and sometimes they get angry when you do that.
Right.
Yes, agreed.
Pedro, what are your thoughts?
I think ray tracing is it's going a little bit against what we spent like the 20 years of computer graphics trying to simulate. And now they say, oh, all this technology that you guys created on the last 20 years, throw it away. Let's use ray tracing because now we have the power to do it. So it doesn't look too much smart in that way. Don't get me wrong, ray tracing is amazing, everyone uses it for pre-computed CG. Like if you are rendering a scene, it doesn't make sense not to use it because you don't need to have performance. Like all the movies from Pixar, they are done with ray tracing. They will not use like other kind of illumination. But for instance, Unreal Engine, when they are baking the light, they use ray tracing. So all the lighting baked, it's in ray tracing. So it's much better, mainly because of the global illumination. That's one thing that, in my opinion, is a game changer. When you start to understand the effects of global illumination around the scene, you want to have that all the time. You want to know, put the flashlight on a green flag and see that green glows out from the flag. That's amazing. Like,
Yeah,
uh,
I agree, Pedro. It's just that to me is exciting. When I see global illumination done well or right, that suddenly your brain just like that looks more realistic. And it's not about the reflection or the reflection. It's not like, oh, let's put a puddle here so we can show that the game character is actually being reflected. It's just like, no, the scene looks better with global illumination. Yeah, much more exciting, at least for me,
yeah,
though. Yeah.
and we see a lot of other tools that are not exactly ray tracing to try to simulate global illumination in a more efficient way. You have videos of Crysis 1 running in global illumination just using a particular set of McFly shaders. That's amazing. If you guys have never seen just Crysis in using global illumination, it's really beautiful. A game from 10 years ago.
No,
Uh,
there's an artist that we know, and I'm not going to say the name, but he showed some of his work with global illumination, and I'm not kidding. You had to double take. You really couldn't tell that it wasn't just a video being captured by some drone in the forest, right? You looked at it, and he zooms way in, and you're just like, are you sure you created this in a video game? Are you sure this isn't a video? It's like, a Memorex moment, right? You just, is it live or is it Memorex? You couldn't tell. So I think global illumination is kind of what Bob was asking in the earlier question, right? What's an underappreciated aspect? I think global illumination right now to me feels like that's going to be a thing that people are underappreciating right now because ray tracing is a shiny, no pun intended, a shiny new thing. Everyone's like, ooh, pretty, but they're over here, global illumination, just chugging away and working hard and doing amazing stuff. And everyone's like, yeah, you're not the shiny new thing. Let's look over here. So I think we'll see a reversal, right?
Yeah. And there are others. We mentioned artificial intelligence, and we're going to be wrapping up here. I think there's the last couple of questions. I'm noticing, especially because I'm a little bit more on the creator side of the pipeline, is there's been an opportunity for artificial intelligence just to improve things dramatically. In Pedro, we were talking earlier about this thing where you can take a standard two-dimensional photograph and get a three-dimensional character created and get a walk cycle done. Essentially, you don't necessarily need to be a developer, you don't need to be a rigger, you don't need to be an animator, and suddenly, wow, look at that. Are there things like this? Are you guys interested in artificial intelligence? You excited about anything on the horizon that might be coming?
Yeah,
For
one
me,
thing. Sorry, go on.
no, go ahead. I was basically what I was going to say is like I haven't been in the AI development system, and so it's something that I want to be in, but I haven't had the time to be able to look at it because I've been heads down so much. And the ability to take a 2D to a 3D rigger, that just seems like a huge game changer for indie groups to be able to move their games forward.
Yeah, I have two particular things that I'm really, really interested. It's the first one. It's like AI, of course, for playing games. As Eric just said, like there is a AI playing StarCraft 2 that beats pro players. That's insane. Like
Yeah.
if we could have that kind of AI playing our own games, like one particular thing that's missing in VR is too many people. So when we do a multiplayer game in VR, would be amazing to have like AIs behaving like real people. So that's not easy. That's not easy at
Well,
all.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate there, right? I know in my many too many years of playing video games, sometimes I get to map X and I jump in and whatever it is, I do this thing, and then I don't realize that there's a giant spider hanging on the ceiling, and it drops down on me and it kills me, and I'm like, crap, restart the map. But this time, I know there's a giant spider on there, and I'm looking for it, and that way I jump back, but it jumps down, right? So I would worry that if AI gets too good, then I'll go into my second round. And I'm like, all right, there's a big spider there, and I'm like, nope. To the scorpion that comes up from the ground behind me. I'm like, damn it, I died again. So we got to balance it. I don't want AI to get so good you can never get past the first map.
Right.
But I'm just saying.
Pretend to be players. When they are pretending to be players, that makes sense. Otherwise, no, the dumb AI that we have in games is necessary for balance of the game, for sure. Yeah. I agree. I totally agree with you, Eric, on that.
Yeah, right. I remember there was actually a group at GDC one year that was making AIs that would fight each other. Actually, it might have been at one of the Intel booths. And the AI was smart and learned how to move through the level and make it so that it could basically, the defenders were trying to stay alive and they knew that they could move the boxes. And so they would just block out the attackers and they'd always win because they got too smart. And then the attackers realized, well, if I push this certain way, I can hop this wall. And so it was making it so then the defenders couldn't win because the AI knew that using a feature, it could exploit the system to get over the wall. Yeah, feature.
Every software developer has done feature.
Yeah. And watching all that happen, you realize, man, if we allow AIs in games, like this is something that's a big thing on my heart, is make it so the AIs can learn as you play. And so you're talking about that spider that comes down and eats me, but then the next time I go through, I'm going to wait and then jump back. Well, I've always wanted to make a game where the first time you play through, the AI is stupid, but you play the same level over and over again. And the goal is to how many levels can I beat in a row as the AI is learning how you play, so that if you go down, let's say, corridor A most of the time, they stack up outside corridor A for you to come around so they kill you easier. And the spider, when you jump in and jump out, doesn't come down, but instead crawls behind you while you're doing that to then eat you.
You want to do an ant roguelike.
Yeah.
Because the roguelike, you play and you understand how they play. So you want to do an ant roguelike.
Yes.
Pretty nice.
I want to do an AI anti-roguelike. Yeah, that's it's always been something on my heart where I'm like, that would be a great game. And it always starts the same way, that the AI is stupid. And then it's how many levels can you beat in a row until the AI is smart enough to defeat you.
And it would be personal to you, John, right? So if you would play over and over again, it's just getting slightly smarter against you. But then if somebody else came in and played, are you like starting over again, with that same AI?
Yeah, so every gameplay would be for how you play, not me. And so the AI, I would ship it basically where the AI would learn, but it was dumb. And so when you started playing the game, it started fresh for you, and then you would play and it would learn how to defeat you.
Yep. Very cool. I love that. Let's get that on Deathmatch.
And just to add one observation, because John brought this up, he said StarCraft, but another one is in Dota 2, they had the International, which is the year's biggest tournament. And obviously it didn't happen last year in 2020, but in the two prior years, right, 2018 and 2019, in 2018, they had a singular AI that played against, I believe it was Dendy, one of the best players at the time, right? He was just the Michael Phelps of the game, right? And sure enough, the AI beats him one-on-one 2 out of 3 times. But then the next year, and this is what is amazing to me, just the very next year in 2019, they evolved from a singular AI that would play as an entity to effectively 5 AIs that could play collaboratively as a team, and they played against 5, it was like an all-star match type of thing, top players in their field from different teams, an all-star team of 5 human players trying to play as a team. And what I found to be most interesting is as you watch this game unfold, the AI did some stuff that I have never seen some human do. And you have to know the game to explain it, but just, whatever it was, like they start pre-digging a hole in no particular reason. And you were like, why the hell were they doing that? And then sure enough, the humans who didn't see them doing this would walk in and fall into the trap or whatever, right? So it was amazing that in watching the AI do the stuff that no human player had ever do,
I think we lost Eric again. Yeah, Eric, we might have lost you on this, but it sounds like I think what we're hearing Eric saying is
it's becoming scary good.
Scary good. Okay.
It's becoming scary good. Sorry.
Yeah. Very good. All right. So we're gonna wrap this up because we could just go on forever. So what I want to do is before we wrap is get something from you guys in terms of what's next. What can we expect from VR Monkey and Soma Games? So Pedro, tell us about what people can expect from VR Monkey.
Well, VR Monkey is now working on a new title called Galaxy Cards, kind of mixing League of Legends with Mario Kart in VR. That's been a whole crazy development cycle, and we're probably gonna have an early access version in a few months.
Okay, sign me up.
So instead of MOBA, League of Legends, right, Massive Online Battle Arena, you need now MORA, Massive Online Racing Arena.
Yeah,
so there you go. That's a whole new genre. MORA, you heard it first. Okay.
All right.
I hope that's nice.
I love it. No, I love racing games. Okay, John, what about Soma Games?
So, we're wrapping up all the Redwall titles, but then we're actually right now internally discussing what is our next thing. Do we go back to the Arc universe and finish off those games, or do we start something new? And we haven't actually decided that yet. My vote for the company is doing F.
Oh no, we lost John.
Which is the next one for the G Prime.
Hey John, redo that again. That your vote was what?
Yes.
You cut out for a moment.
My vote. Yeah, so my vote was doing F, which is the next one in the Arc universe, and so that is basically what I call it is 3D pool in space mining.
3D pool, as in that kind of pool, right?
Yes, as in
billiards.
Pool cues.
Yeah. Okay. In space. All right. So another physics-based game. Okay.
Yeah, using
I like
force.
That. I like
F
that.
for force.
F for force. Yep.
So, John, do you guys have a Facebook page or something where people can go to and chime in if we get enough people watching this podcast, if they have opinions? Do you want to hear something from the audience?
Yeah, we can do that. We do. We're on Facebook. We also have SomaGames.com, and we have a Redwall Soma Games Discord server, but I don't quite have the link for that. We could send that to you, but.
We can add that to our list,
in the description below.
And
so, like Bill and Ted, we say it now, and we have to do it in the future, so it actually happens. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We predict the future.
We predict the future. Oh, very good. And Pedro, you can do URL shout out as well. Where do people find VR Monkey?
Just look VR Monkey on Google or any search engine that you're gonna find our website, and we are on almost all the social platforms as well.
Perfect. We will add the links below. And, Pedro, John, thank you guys for joining the show. Really appreciated you having us and listening to us and hanging out. And so everybody out there, if you enjoyed this, please like the video and subscribe. And as always, I think what we'd like to do, Eric, is let's end with a joke before we wrap the show.
Right. So a lot of people know the Jeff Foxworthy, right? You might be a redneck if. There's a whole litany I did one time on how to tell if you're an uber geek, and one of the key ones is if you can cite pi to 9 digits, but you have no idea how many innings there are in a football game, you might be an uber geek. So there you go.
Innings in a football game. Okay. Very good. There you know. That's how you can tell the difference. All right. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. That's a wrap for our show, and I guess we'll see you next time, maybe in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Ciao.
See ya.
Thank you.